Someone who has posted before, I found out, has left 2 more comments when I replied to them with the most likely thing they needed to read to educate themselves. Their assertion was that in year 2000 they saw something in the sky that shouldn't have been there. Now, I asked in a video for an explanation of what the person was talking about, but they didn't seem to reply to that video. And I also mentioned that I don't believe them. But anyway, it was a short comment, and all I did was leave a sitchiniswrong.com/sitchinerrors, because instead of calling him a liar, it just says he made mistakes and wouldn't own up to them. That's the least mean thing to say about Mr. Sitchin. And he is the origin story for people misinterpreting the word Nibiru to mean something other than what it does. And the reason for that site being done is a person saying, for academic reasons, I don't like it when a person literally lies about what the people who wrote those words said it meant. They wrote dictionaries, didn't do. So the first statement was something along this. When people talk about the ascension of man, they're referring to a change in frequency or vibration. That's not really true. Humans don't have a resonant frequency effect of any kind. This is literally bullshit woo peddling to the point that it is an overtly non-real statement that has never had any reason to exist, that doesn't have any meaning, and is absolutely never been true. And by saying it, you are literally putting a chip on your shoulder and saying, go ahead, tell me I'm wrong, because you're an antagonistic person. I tell this to everybody. I don't care. If you insist on woo peddling, don't talk to me. I had to deal with someone like this week repeatedly, and other things. A dying star is a dwarf star and is considered to be the most pristine light in the universe and is capable of enhancing DNA, RNA, in quantum leap fashion. This is actually a video I was going to do, so I'll just do it now. No. A dying star is not necessarily going to be a dwarf, white dwarf, or brown dwarf, or any other kind of star. Stars die in all sorts of ways. The usual pattern, if they're on the main line, is a certain pattern. But a dwarf star doesn't mean it's lighter. It may have as much mass as another star, which means a smaller star doesn't have to orbit a bigger one, any more than our star has to orbit a red giant, an expanded mass. The density isn't the same, but here we go. And it doesn't alter DNA or RNA that way. It simply does not. You're basically just woo peddling. And when they talk about the cross, they were referring to the crossing of 2 star systems. No, you're talking about the word Nibiru, and that's absolutely supposed to link back to Sitchin making a mistake and idiot of himself. It doesn't refer to the crossing of 2 stars. The word crossing is used in that case to mean portal or transition point. To cross a river, that sort of thing. It's like saying angang. This is a common, ordinary, modern expression in a specific country, and it means portal or doorway, or even a gate. It just means a passageway to go through. It's a very generalized but very good concept. It's like almost like an intellectual emoji. It has a meaning and it's universal. It could be an open doorway, it could be the entrance or exit to a tunnel, it could be a passageway, whatever. Angang. That's the best I can pronounce it from that language. Next, let's get this one. Yeah, but it's not referring to the crossing 2 star systems. That's an extremely narrow interpretation that defies the definition for the word that you're misusing, and you're using nemesis, etc. It's Nibiru is the word you're using, and badly doing it. The cross of Christ, crystal, and crystal, or Christ all. No, his name had nothing to do with that. You're literally ignoring the assertion of the people at the time for why that name was used. It is highly likely Jesus was born under the influence of Nemesis and had advanced DNA, RNA, and supernatural abilities for the time. No, it isn't. He was an ordinary person that people deified because they raised him to semi-godlike status or demigod status to make him a hero. In the same way we had Paul Bunyan. People actually really talked about a giant blue ox, and when you asked them, you do understand that there really wasn't a blue ox, right? It was a story. They'd get offended because you were challenging their ability to practice doublethink. Many children are born under the influence of Nemesis and star. It's a binary star system. It's a binary star system, or we are a binary star system and this is our star companion. Which is it? Are you being vague? Like saying frequency and earth changes and all these other things that don't really have a meaning, but you can say them and people glaze over? I can say, let's hack the Gibson. That's an expression used in movies. It's a trope. There isn't any Gibson. It's a bullshit statement. You use that as a joke in a movie talking about hackers. From the movie Hackers. It's a Blue Ox Babe thing, you know, right? According to astronomy, most stars are found in pairs. Yes, slightly more than 50% of the stars out there are in pairs. Within the pairs. Which means out of star systems, it's not over half, it's less than half of the star systems are binary star systems. Because if they're binary, that's their star system. But yeah, half of the stars in existence are paired. The other half aren't. The star systems are fewer star systems. It's a misconception people go under. Or I'm wrong. And that's actually an assumption someone made. And then they said, well, what if ours is a binary star? Yeah, but the binary stars have a peculiarity. No matter how hard you push it, they orbit a point in the middle, or one is physically more massive, doesn't have to be physically smaller or larger, it could be any size, and one orbits the other, mostly, at a fairly large distance or short distance, right? But if they're evenly matched, they orbit each other around a point, which means if you got a bunch of planets orbiting this one, you're going to see the other star for a very long time during the year, because we orbit one of these stars. And if you're saying it's a binary star system of Nemesis and Nibiru, all right, why are you saying that we can only see them on certain times? And then you're going to invoke chemtrails, of course, because, well, we have to have an escape hatch. Holograms, earth changes, vibrations. Empty-headed bullshit usage of wording. Too much Star Trek. We got a coolant link. And the matter containment unit. You don't have to have a containment unit for matter, just antimatter. Yeah, that's an in-joke about Star Trek. You don't have to contain matter, you contain antimatter. I'll read that link tomorrow, but it don't matter what it says about Nemesis, because even if it wasn't Nemesis that I saw that day, it was still some kind of star. And then he gives a description for it. Anyway, I sent him to Sitchin is Wrong, mostly because let's just go on. It was blue-silver, remember that, and it was 10 times brighter than the moon that day. He saw two things in the sky. It was 10 times brighter than the moon. And the size of the moon. The sun and the moon are the same size in the sky. You know that, right? You could actually measure it. If you can violate your pact with the devil himself and get out a damn measurement device to measure the angular diameter of the moon and the sun with a light filter so you don't hurt your eyes, don't be Trump. It's the same size almost. They're almost exactly the same diameter. Why is it we don't teach science in schools? Oh, I know, because then people question things too much and they don't obey. Let's kill off science. It was not small, and it was a star, and it was not our star because the light was at 12 o'clock and at 10:30 a.m. So you couldn't look in the sky and saw the sun and moon and mistook one for the other on a cloudy day. They're the same diameter angularly. You can have a light cloud cover over here and a slightly denser cover over here, and you can look right at the sun and it will look like the moon. You know that, right? There's several pictures of that. The sun and the moon looking the same. They're called twin sun. You can... And it was 10:30 a.m. on a Saturday, so it could not be our sun because its position. Why would Saturday affect whether you could see it at that position? And 10:30 a.m. timing and seeing it in a position you weren't expecting just could be you're wrong a little bit. I'm in a rather unique location where what looks like noon isn't noon. It's around 10 a.m. here. It's because of the angle of the hills here. It distorts your angle. Keep digging, one day you'll look up and see it too. I've seen this repeatedly. I grew up in an area that had this happen every few weeks. You know, you could see the sun and look through the clouds, and every once in a while you'd see the moon through it with less clouds, and they would look about the same brightness. But anyway, Sunset or sunrise is most likely time to spot it. Unfortunately, they like to chemtrail before sunrise, and they chemtrail a few hours before sunset. Pay attention and you will see what I mean. In Florida, it's 4 p.m. on the east side chemtrailing, and I'm not awake at 5 a.m., and I'm sure that's when they chemtrail too. Why are you sure that's when they chemtrail when you're not up to see it? You don't accept that you have to observe something to actually prove that it's happening? So at sunrise you cannot see it either. Man-made clouds will block your view. Thing is, I saw it before chemtrailing was being used to hide it. They were chemtrailing for other reasons, but not to hide this system, and nowadays they just do it to hide the Nemesis star. So it's a star instead of a planet called Nemesis, which is actually a sci-fi story that you can go look up. It's called the Nemesis sci-fi story. The length people go to conceal the truth is astonishing. Yes, I know, I'm witnessing it here. You're hiding it from yourself. You won't acknowledge that you have a set of presumptions and principles that you start off life every day with that are just not real. Now again, none of this actually affects whether or not this person can, I hope, drive a car, chew bubble gum, or pick their nose without somehow impaling their brain. But the problem with this is being done deliberately to aggravate people on the net. I'm letting you guys in on a little secret. I know this person doesn't believe what they're typing. They don't. They have every earmark of someone who spends all day trying to convince everybody in the United States that it's normal to defy facts and science, and you'll just keep doing it. You can do it. Fake it till you make it, for political or ideological reasons. I'll get around to that in a minute, but here we go. Search Two Suns on YouTube. That's what I saw. It's not fake video. No, it's waiting for the right conditions and filming it. Sort of like a bug coming at the camera. No, now this is why we are warming, and this is why our Schumann frequency has increased all at a fact. Nothing they tell you is accurate or even close to the truth. One of the 5,000 active volcanoes is enough to outperform the carbon pollution. You mean human-caused carbon pollution? That's not really true either. The amount of carbon dioxide, it's a gas, that we put off is a lot more than a volcano that puts off mostly solid and semi-solid material, as well as mostly other gases entirely. The carbon dioxide released is actually a smaller portion of it than you might believe. Meanwhile, when you burn just some cordwood, you're putting off mostly carbon dioxide. Anyway, carbon does play a role, but its levels have little to do with us and more to do with the death of plants in the fall and spring. More plants have been dying at fall and spring because of the frequency increase in pulses from Nemesis oscillations. It's EMF and more plus. Okay. Now, the reason I'm letting you in on this little secret is, have you noticed that everybody's self-centered, selfie-based, that we expend a huge amount of effort protecting our feels, that you all complain about everybody wanting to feel better, that outrage culture is running this planet into the ground? We had a guy literally land a little robot on a comet, him and a bunch of other people, but because he was wearing a t-shirt that was made by a woman that depicted women scantily clad, he was emotionally and psychologically punished into submission because he was a successful man in science, and someone had to take him down a notch. That man's achievement is destroyed because he wore a shirt that offended people. Outrage culture is a very important thing. And lying about facts is extremely fashionable. We have a president who literally lies every day. Period, full stop. This isn't a discussion, that's what he does. You're not allowed to argue with me. It's not going to happen. Because I can prove he lied. But that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I can prove someone lied anymore. People have understood that because you can record everything they do, they might just well keep lying, because if you keep lying, people eventually get used to it. We get used to the abuse. People who post this kind of horse shit on their videos do it because they don't care what I say or you think. They want to push one more person over the brink of not dealing with reality. It has lots of effects. Your comments will be deleted, and I'm not letting you post until you acknowledge that you said things that were simply not true. You can read about Sitchin errors, it doesn't make any difference. You're not going to change your opinion because you don't believe any of this.